So, you're the beauty. What are you, I mean, we know you have 9 episodes that you've done already. So what are you enjoying about your character?
I really like this representation of a beautiful woman on television that is three-dimensional. It's nice to play a Latina woman that's three-dimensional. Most of the times we're maids, we're stealing someone's husband, so, and this role was not written as Latina. In fact, they wanted her to be more ethnically different to the Cuban family, and so I was not a first choice. And then I came back and did it in my Australian accent, and they were like, oh, this could make sense, because even though I'm ethnically Latina, the cultural differences play if I play my Australian upbringing. And so that's how we ended up with an all Latin cast. And so in this way, I really enjoy getting to portray a three-dimensional, smart. The beauty is irrelevant. They really want to show her as smart, capable. She has a company. She's a mogul. She has her hands in all these different kinds of businesses. She's a designer. She's also a philanthropist. She's like a modern day superwoman. And that's exciting to show on television to young women especially, and young Latinas especially, that you don't have to be limited into these boxes that they used to write us into. You know, I'm the Prince Charming, he's the Cinderella, I'm buying him stuff. I think that's nice to show on TV for women to know that they don't always have to just, grow up and pursue the man, and they can be the ones being pursued and chased and aspired to.
Sorry. I like that you just mentioned the three-dimensionality of the character. I think it was like a year ago, the USC Annenberg study came out and kind of quantified the lack of roles for the Latinx community, which was dismal. So I'm very happy for this show because it's so important, and I think it helps people feel seen, which is, I think, the most important thing you could do with film or TV.
It's really important to feel represented. Britt Marling had an amazing that article in the New York Times, I don't want to be your strong female lead, and the stories we're telling, the characters we're writing, and the narratives we're sharing with the world are really important. This is like imprinting, programming young children to to what they can be and aspire to, So if we're telling young Latinas, oh, well, on television we'll only show you as a maid and a vixen and a cop, and then they're going to feel limited in the stories that they know how to tell in their own lives. And so this is really breaking molds and pioneering new frontiers for Latinas inadvertently. ABC didn't know, that the beauty was also going to be a Latina, but she is.
Nice.
How is it being a part of a show that has an all Latino cast?
Amazing! So I grew up in Australia, and there are not many Latinos over there, so my mom and I were we felt very isolated, and my mom kept up our Latin culture in our home with our music and our food. But it was 3 times a year we would go to a Latin community gathering, and so it was a very different experience had I grown up as a Latina in Miami or LA, which is why my Spanish is not that great, because there wasn't opportunities to practice there. And so for me, that always felt like home, who I truly was, my people. And while I do feel Australian in a lot of sense, I also feel not Australian. When I dance, when I make love, when I eat, there are things that Latinos we do very differently. And so I always fantasized about what my real family, what my going back to my people would be like. And when I was 16, I did go back to Brazil. It was my first time in Latin America. And I was like, this is what I've been missing, the sabor and the music. And I actually dated a Brazilian guy for a couple of years, and what I really kept going back to visit him was for his family. I loved being with his family. I never had that big Latino family. So now I get to have one on TV, and they've also become my real life family. And then we got to film in Puerto Rico, which is an amazing island, and I love the people, and that became a family too, the crew and the island itself. I'm moving back there. I love it so much. So
And I was actually going to ask you that because I was doing my research yesterday, and I'm probably going to ask all the Puerto Rican questions because I'm Puerto Rican. But I was doing my research yesterday, and I was looking at your Instagram, and I was looking at all the videos and how much fun you had while in Puerto Rico, and I saw that love jump from the screen of Instagram literally into real life. So tell me about your experience about having the opportunity to film in Puerto Rico.
well, first of all, it was really wonderful to be part of the rebuild, because they really need the money, and they really need the work, and they really need the creativity, and so that was it was so lovely to work somewhere where they're so grateful for us to be there, and they're all so wonderful and creative, and just like it's such a good vibe on set. Like, Puerto Ricans are really wonderful people, and their mentality, I think because I'm from Australia too, there's like that island mentality of like really chill and really like to enjoy life, and don't take things too seriously. There's no road rage. I didn't see any, so that's a kind of like typical like idea of what a Puerto Rican is: fun loving and likes to enjoy life. But then diving deeper into that, the opportunity of what Puerto Ricans have to be able to do there now post Hurricane Maria is very exciting to me, because in the rebuild they get to decide what do we want to keep and what do we not want to keep. And I actually got really fascinated about the topic of food in Puerto Rico, which is a whole nother topic, but I was really troubled by the Americanization of the food in Puerto Rico, all the Burger Kings and McDonald's, and how that's been impacting the health of the island, and that's not our heritage. That's not what we were eating before the Americans came in and before the Spanish came in. We were healthy. We were growing our own food. So I decided to move back to work on a farm there, to really pioneer females in agriculture, and to show Puerto Ricans and Latinos like, hey, we need to start caring about our food and growing it ourselves and not importing all of it. This is like an island where 75% of the farmable land is not being farmed. So I'm hoping to tell that story in Puerto Rico so that it has a domino effect for the rest of Latin America, so we can emancipate ourselves and decolonize the way we see food, and really grow it ourselves and know where it's coming from, and take our health and our food into our own hands.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
You should not documentary about that.
I'm making it.
Yeah, because people.
That's my next project.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Turning down Marvel. Doing a documentary on food.
How are things at home in Australia?
Not good. Same situation. We're not growing the food we should be growing. We're not treating the land with respect. And the fires came through, and it was like an atomic bomb was dropped on the country. I smelt the smell of 1 billion animals burning.
Oh my God.
So I witnessed climate change up front and personal, and I will never be the same again. And this is why I'm so passionate about like really looking at the way we live, from the choices, what we're eating, how we're dressing, like the clothes we wear, the textiles. These all have impact on the land and on the earth, and that's what's warming her. And so I'm taking personal responsibility in my life with what I eat, what I wear, my choices, and I'm hoping that it has an effect, a trickle-down effect, and hoping to inspire Latinos, hoping to inspire Australians that this is something really important. We need to wake up and pay attention, because those fires are going to come here as well, If the world is heating, the world is warming. This is something we cannot ignore anymore. Thank you for asking.
This is amazing. Like, you're doing that. I think it's incredible. It really is.
I'm trying to sneak all this into the show as well.
I
had a scene where I was writing, because I have a fashion line, so they were like, the opening line of the scene was a man telling me, sales of bikinis and sarongs are up by 50%. And I was like, can we squeeze in a line about sustainability? And they let me. But I'm like, this is important, guys, especially if she's supposed to be an aspirational modern woman. Like she needs to be, if she's running a business and is, at the top of her game, then that's something that she's taking into account. How sustainable is her business? Are we destroying the earth, or are we making it better? And so I've been able to sneak a couple of things in, and Dean's the showrunner is like, if only to make you shut up.
Dan was saying that he finds it a little cathartic to be able to play Lewis, because he gets to channel his inner Ari Gold. So I'm wondering, does your character Noah having only seen the pilot, we don't really get to see too much of her personality at that level. I want to know, do you feel she likes having him around and being the shrewd businessman, the one that runs the interference, basically as a line of defense?
I think she's smart, and I think she's careful about her image, and she knows that, like, you can't be a beautiful, strong woman and be the one, like, firing people and doing dirty deals and stuff like that, because sadly we live in a society where women aren't allowed to express themselves in that way. Otherwise we'll be labeled a bitch, et cetera, et cetera. So she knows, she understands the world she's living in, and so she likes having him to be able to, you know, politely tell a guy, like, so Noah won't be seeing you again, it's time to leave, as we see in the pilot. Or, you know, like, later on down the line, Lewis might take matters into his own hands with trying to contain the kind of PR nightmare of her dating a guy that had a girlfriend very publicly until very recently, you know, because the breakup video of Vanessa dumping soup on him is all over the internet, so anyone can do the timeline. And you know, there's throughout the season, there's the potential of Noah being painted in the press as a homewrecker, which could be really damaging for her brand. So Lewis definitely takes matters into his own hands, and some might think that his methods are unscrupulous, and it's really interesting to see Noah's take on all of it, you know, and Daniel's take. They all have a different idea on, like, what's the ethical line here, paying people off, not paying people off. But I think she's very savvy, and she's a product of her world. She's a modern woman. I would say she's a feminist, but she also understands the constraints she's living in our patriarchal society where women are judged very quickly.
Well, kind of to the point about keeping up the image, you know, not being a homewrecker. And without giving too much away, do you think Michelle's character is just going to take an L, or she might be coming around being a psycho ex-girlfriend?
What does an L mean?
A loss, taking a loss.
Sorry, I don't think
I know what it meant.
Yeah, either. To go down with all the lingo.
Take an L, take a loss.
I think
Dan knew what I meant.
Loser.
Dan knew what I meant. He's like,
so. I think while it would be very tempting TV to watch her go on the path of vengeful ex, and I'm not saying she doesn't. I think the choice that the writers made in the season to acknowledge that these are two strong and centered women, and not necessarily go the obvious route of catfight, like when are we going to see that catfight happen, and go a more realistic route. I think that's really interesting, and so of course she's a wronged ex. She's not going to be mad, but that's not to say that
She's passionate.
She's passionate.
yeah.
But that doesn't say that there can't be a potential reconciliation down the line, which is more interesting to watch. And me and Vanessa, me and Michelle, because we're like each other's favorites. I wish it was the beauty and the baker's ex. I love her. We're like, can we just be friends and team up? And I think that's more interesting.
I wasn't a very big fan of Daniel's character at that point in time. I was like, oh, dude, you are mean.
When he said no?
Yeah.
It's, you know, I like that so many people are siding with her.
Yeah, I feel like he could have taken care of that before I got to that point. You know, I think he was being such a typical dude, like not having a clue about a relationship being over and acknowledging it early enough.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it just boiled over and.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm projecting.
They were together for 4 years, so in
That's
his
what I'm saying.
mind,
He could have taken care of that before
in
he got
his
to
mind, he felt
you know.
like he's in a relationship. You know, it's like,
It's interesting that it's like that soup scene, the proposal scene, is very polarizing, and I'm surprised at how many people really side with the Vanessa's character. You know, I think that's testament to how truthful and beautifully she played that. You know, that you really feel for her, and yeah, I hope Victor doesn't come off as too mean.
You know, he's very nice and likable. I just felt like, dude, you could have avoided that whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can be.
It is funny that Noah's like, that's the guy I want. The guy who doesn't know how to speak up for himself in 4 years. But I think that she sees something, and I think the conversation in the bathroom and overhearing him, she understands, like, she just got out of a relationship herself that she knew she shouldn't have been in. We've all done that. You know, when Colin cheats on her, she's not like heartbroken because she knows, like, you know what, I shouldn't have been in that relationship anyway. I knew what kind of guy he was. And so I think in that way they find kindred spirits in one another, because she's like, look, we're not all perfect. We've all done that. We all should have spoken up longer and ended a relationship before it did. So yeah, she tries to find the positive in him. Otherwise, there's no show.
No,
You
true.
just mentioned the conversation in the bathroom, and I was going to ask you about that. Was it written that way from the beginning, that that's where your scene as Noah was going to be the intro in the bathroom? In the gentleman's
Was it
bathroom?
written that way?
Yeah, from the beginning.
Well, that was a scene lifted from the original.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the scenes.
that was
yeah.
original.
So the pilot takes a lot from the original, and the original's wonderful if you haven't watched it yet. It's actually I binged the whole thing. But then very quickly after the pilot, they were like, you know what, this is a whole different dynamic, different cast, and they have gone in their own direction. So by watching the original, you're not going to get too many spoilers, because pretty much we only lift certain things from the pilot, and then we kind of go around.
Because we've only seen the pilot. So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so that scene was taken from the original, and it's a nice idea, for two people to meet in that way in the men's bathroom. And it comes up later where someone was like, why were you in the, Lewis, he's like, why were you in the men's bathroom? And she's like, there's no line.
Yeah, it's true.
The funniest thing is, I've done that.
Yeah, I think it's-
you go for the men's restroom.
You didn't want to wait.
Yeah.
And it's just like the most unexpected place to meet a celebrity, like, you know, finishing up at the urinal. And then like the equivalent of J-Lo walks out. No, it's funny in Puerto Rico because, like, you know, I'm not a famous person, and we have to get the background activated, and I'd come out and it'd be like, and so the PAs would get out and be like, no, you don't understand. Imagine this is J-Lo, okay? So now I get really triggered by J-Lo because I'm like, oh god. Like every time they'd have to get people excited by using her name, and then they'd be like, hey, it's J-Lo.
We'll substitute it for Britney from now on.
Well, for what?
We'll say Britney instead of J-Lo.
I'll stick with J-Lo. At least she's Latina.
I know you downgraded her.
I'm thinking about icons, you know, so.
But it was
sorry.
Puerto Rico, so it made sense to use J-Lo.
Selena, we'll stick with Selena.
You're like 10 years, like 15 years ago. The young people would be like, ¿Quién?
There's a Netflix show coming out.
You'll be surprised.
So yes.
Which was played by J-Lo. So
Yes.
we're good.
So I guess that's it. We're good.
Oh my god.
I was gonna say
Any other questions?
That's really-
The now that you have the 9 episodes down, can you give us a hint if it gets picked up, which we hope it does? What would you like to see where your character would be at that time?
Well, I've already said, can she please retire from modeling? It's like too painful. I'm like 35. I still gotta be like getting into I can't. I'm like, what if she grows a garden? Because Daniel's a chef, right? So I pitched that you open season 2 like in the garden, growing their own food. Sneak some things about the soil in there and the compost. They'll be like, ABC's like, we don't want to talk about compost. But yeah, growing their own food, the Garden of Eden, I thought, it would show her, and let's say this is season 2, they end up, because who knows what happens at the end of season 1, maybe they don't end up together. But let's say they do end up together, it would be a nice evolution to show her like having taken a step down. I think you see enough of modeling in season 1, and I don't know. It's nice to just expand on what look at Giselle. Nobody doubts that she is the world's top model, but she is very interested in all these other things.
Very true.
She gardens.
Very
So
true. Very true.
I just want to expand on what we think a beautiful woman does. Like it's not all contouring and facials.
A person behind the image.
I think that's more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is, absolutely.
And you see a lot of Noah at the office because she's kind of like a hybrid of like Giselle and Gwyneth Paltrow. She's got it's like the Noah lab. It's like the Goop lab where they test all their cruelty-free makeup. And I made sure that that was in there, and so that was interesting. And at first I was worried. I was like, oh, but people want to tune in and see the beauty. Like, don't we need to show more glamour and red carpet? And they were like, the beauty is going to be there, but like it's more interesting to see you do other stuff. And then when I watched this episode, I was like, oh, you're right. Like, there's only so much we can take of like seeing somebody behind the scenes at a photo shoot, and is that very like aspirational? So yeah, so I'm excited to expand and see her do other stuff.
I do have actually another question. Were you guys actually dangling off of?
Green screen.
Nice.
Yes, green screen. I'm glad that it looks so real.
That looks so real.
Yeah.
You guys were, Dan confirmed you guys were in LA, you, Daniel, and himself for the Winter TCA, where we got to meet you. And you guys went back to Puerto Rico right after that big earthquake. I was wondering what it was like for you to deal with your crew that, as you mentioned, is a big family.
Well, the people were shaken, and also because this is not normal. Like, the last big earthquake was like nearly 100 years ago in Puerto Rico, so people were also not prepared. But in San Juan, in the top part of the island, the effect wasn't as severe. It was more the south around Ponce, where people, like, I think now are even not sleeping in their homes because they're scared. And like, it's like the it's the like emotional, psychological impact that's like the biggest felt. It's just like, how much more can the island take, you know? And then there was like a big loss of like jobs from the earthquake. A couple of I think a big Marvel film pulled out because they're like, oh, this is, you know, it's not feasible. Even our production was really rattled, lost a couple of days, and it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate because the island is so special and it really does need the work. Yeah, it would be a shame to not go back because of that.
To your message about conservation, I have my friends living on the island were telling me that's because of the fracking going on.
I did look into that, but I've read that there has not been any fracking, but they want to start, and that they also that by the way they want to turn Puerto Rico into the Caribbean's oil and gas hub, which we've got to protest. Wow. It's like, why are we not harnessing the power of the sun? This is a place where we should be thriving on renewables and solar, and the earthquake taught us not to rely on the grid. No more of this centralized grid. We got to get our power elsewhere. So that's why I want to move back as well. There's an election coming up, and you know, I'm just like a foreigner, but you know, I'm not going to tell people what to do, but I think people really need to be educated and appreciate when I share with them like what's going on the island, you know, because people are just like in survival mode, which I understand. And when you're in survival mode, you're not taking too much other information in, and so that's why I really want to come and raise awareness about these important things, so we can like elect somebody who's going to really take care of the island and her natural resources.
We have time for one more question.
I like you.
Maybe Noah runs for president. She's like, I've got to fix this myself, guys. The men have screwed this up. Time for the woman to step in.
And I love that you use your platform for that, because I think it's amazing. It's very amazing.
Otherwise, why else?
Yeah.
Another question?
Last question, guys.
You know, you've answered so much for us already, and given us even more with your activism and things like that. So I think we're good.
We're good.
We're good.
Are you gonna, like, on your Instagram, can we keep, like, if you do like your documentary or stuff, like, to get involved? Is there gonna be?
Yeah, a good question about getting people involved. Well, right now I'm going to be doing a lot of documenting, and I'm going to think about how, when people say, what can I do? I'm going to start making sure that, because that's another thing, it's not enough to dump information on people. You got to give them the tools as well. So I've got information on my Instagram about composting, which is a major one, like major. It's one thing we can all start doing. Stop throwing our food in the trash. It's really bad for the earth. It releases gases in the landfill. And if we start composting, then we can start feeding the earth instead. It's like the easiest thing we can do. So I've done some like information on that. But when I start doing the farming stuff, I'm going to like tell people like the whole point is to show people that you can start doing it too. And then the documentary I hope will really inspire people as well to start like changing eating habits and coming home and talking to your family. Why do we have the highest rate of diabetes? Why does Puerto Rico have the highest rate of diabetes in America? That is not our birthright. Latinos are not supposed to be dying of heart disease and diabetes, you know, but we gotta learn, we've forgotten how to eat and prepare the yuca, the batata, the malanga, all these beautiful root vegetables, all the nettle, the nettle, how do I say it? I forgot the word, but all the greens that grow an abundance on the island. So actually I'm working with some chefs from Puerto Rico that are into using these like native ingredients so that we can teach people, and I'll be putting up some classes and recipes. This is how we're supposed to be eating. This is how we were eating before colonization happened, before pre-heart disease, pre-diabetes. So I'll be sharing the information so you can start doing it at home as well, and keeping what you said in mind to make sure that if people want to get activated, there are ways how.
And I guess